calling all educators with a passion for teaching and a health for faith. Get ready for a transformative journey with the Educators with Oil podcast, where host Ronnette Branham is dedicated to helping teachers become better through biblical strategies.
Welcome to Educators with Oil. How are you, Educators with Oil family? I am, again, as always, excited to have you here today. Thank you for joining me. And we're going to get started. We have a change in plans. We had a guest scheduled for tonight, and we have plans have been changed. So I am here. So I tell people, I wrote in a note, you gotta be ready so you don't have to get ready. So with that, the last minute change of plans, I'm excited because again, I had to be ready. So thank you for joining me. And how are you today, tonight? I appreciate you. I'm gonna be looking forward to this conversation because this is something that we all go through, no matter, it's just life, like things happen in our lives. So, we're planning our lessons and we're planning our days, we're planning our weeks, we're planning whatever we're planning. And then life sometimes has its own plans, or we have to plan for things outside of school, excuse me, at the same time. So it's called lesson plans and life plans. Sometimes they don't all coincide. They don't all work cohesively together. And what happens when your personal life interrupts your flow? You're on a roll. You're like, I got some momentum going. Got my lesson plans. That's what I'm going to do with my kids this week. Then life happens outside of the school, outside of the classroom, outside of school. Your family needs me. I have an older mom, a senior citizen mom. Things happen. Sometimes things happen with your siblings, your family members, anything. Something can happen with your house, your home. And so you have to make a pivot. You have to change. Something has to happen. Like you're grading papers with one hand sometimes, and you're talking to your doctor with the other hand, or texting somebody at your doctor's office, sending an email. Life doesn't pause because you say, I have lesson plans, because I'm grading papers. Life doesn't pause simply because my principal called a faculty meeting. No, things happen, So I just want you to know that, with pressures of personal life, pressures of professional life, we have to work within everything, and make things happen. Make moves that we might not normally have to make. Whether you're dealing with grief, family issues, health concerns, life transitions, this is going to remind you that God has a plan. His plans are not always our plans. We already know that. Life's plans are not always our life plans, but we have to be prepared and learn how to roll with the punches. I think I just learned. I was thinking, I had a coach. Let me go back. I had a coach, right? And she was two coaches, actually. They were kind of similar. They're a little different. And they always telling us like that we create our life. And our life is like abundance of what we do, our life choices. The choices that we made, this is what our life is, right? And I used to say, and they want us to think higher level, higher vibration, whatever you want to call it, higher level thinking. And as we do with our students, we want our students to think higher level thinking, not just who, what, when, right? We want to know why and how. So I used to ask, because there was things that I wanted in my life that I didn't see happening. I couldn't understand how, my life can change that drastically just by thinking something. And they were just, I said, how could I accelerate this thinking? And they were like, repetition. So I was learning lately that we plan for things. We think about when we get up in the morning, we plan for our future, not what happened to us in the past. So we think about our future and plan for things. So if I get a bump in the road, if the doctor calls with bad news, if there's an accident somewhere, I have to plan ahead of time how I would react, what I would do. So I'm learning that. And today I had just an awakening of that. And then all of a sudden, then I get a message, my guest couldn't make it. And so it was just like, I didn't even trip. I'm like, okay, well, things happen. That's what it is. I have to be ready. Like, I don't know if somebody's going to cancel ever, but I still have to put my show out. So it just was like, you're good. There's no trip because there's no trip. Like, what? Okay. And so here I am. And that it just brought me to this message. Life happens, things happen, and let's move with it. What are we going to do? That's my thing when I always say, what are you going to do about it? People are upset about what's happening in their school districts. Okay, so now what are you going to do? Because I found out complaining doesn't work. Even bringing your issues to whoever is in charge, that doesn't even work. You have to roll something out on your own and make it happen, and then show somebody the evidence. Like, you need to be taking pictures, videos, all that kind of stuff, document to prove that this works, how this works. That's just what we have to do. So complaining doesn't work. So let's get together and see what we got to do. The first thing we have to know is that we're human. Everybody, we're human. Things happen to us. Things happen with us. Things happen for us. So even changing the way that we're talking, how we address that, we say things happen to us. How about we say things happen for us? Things happen with us. Some of the stuff we did it, and then we're reaping the repercussions of what we did. And then, like, why things always happen to me? Well, how about you change your behavior? I know I'm guilty of that. I need to change my behavior. Yeah, and that's true. We do have to have a support system. Not only that, we need to train our support system. We absolutely have to train our support system, because I remember years ago, my daughter went to the hospital. I have an aunt. She was like, we were close. And I one time I went to the doctor. And I went to the doctor. She went to the doctor with my daughter. My daughter had to have surgery or something, and I forgot. And she was bawling like the world was coming to an end. Like, my daughter they gave her a death sentence. She was not the person to be there. So we have to train our support system. Like, I went with her to the doctor. I was supportive. I didn't even know what to do. I know I'm there with her. She started crying because of the doctor. The doctor didn't say anything to her yet. She started crying. Like, he's just there to help her, have a better life. And she's crying. And we have to get our support system in, and we have to train some people, because as people, we love our family members and we want to support them, and they want to support us, but we really have to understand that there's a time for everything. There's a season for everything. Sometimes we have to be strong. Sometimes we have to sit down and work out all the nuts and bolts of a situation. At the same time, we got work to do. We have work, and life doesn't always ask for permission to to interrupt the flow. It doesn't. On a roll, and this is personal. I'll let you see it. On a Monday, last Monday, actually, my mom had to take her. She had to call an ambulance for her to pick her up. She's on her way to the emergency room. The next day, her son, he had to go to a different hospital. I don't know why he went to a different hospital. He went to a different hospital in another ambulance. Like, and you have to get off work. I had to leave work. I did. I didn't have to leave work. If my mom, she was okay. Then my brother, he's in the hospital. He's thinking the worst. And no, you need to. That's why you have to have a good, prepared support system. He's panicking, and I'm like, well, what are the doctors saying? Let me talk to these people. Talk to them, and they explain everything, and everything is, it's not fine, but they explain it so that you can understand it, and then they're going to do the best thing for you. So you have to have somebody like that who's going to go, be supportive. It's not saying, I don't know what strong is. They just have to know how to behave in each situation. That's just We have to be emotionally intelligent. And we have to train our family. We have to plan things, sit down, and have conversations with our families, with our support system, with our coworkers, our colleagues, whoever we're close to. That's what we need to do. Okay, if somebody calls me while I'm here at work, right? Boss, what do you expect me to do? Because this is what I'm going to do. I'll give you time enough to get somebody to cover my class, but this is what I need to do, right? So let your people know what this is what we're gonna do. This is what happened if this happens, and if not, and if it's not an emergency, I'll stay here. I'll be here. I may not come the next day, but I'll prepare for that as well. Sometimes you get a phone call in the middle of the class while you're teaching, and you have to assess whether do I need to answer that call. Do I need to leave it, let it go to voicemail? Depends on who it is. If it looks like something important, your family members know you're at work and they're calling you and they know your lunchtime. If they call you, you may think it's an emergency, so you got to answer that. What am I going to do if I have to answer that phone call? I did that. My daughter called me and I was being observed. I answered it because she knows I'm at work. Must have been an emergency. And it wasn't. She said to me, if it wasn't an emergency, you're way in Trenton. You're far away. You're an hour away. So what would you have done anyway? So I don't need you for an emergency, right? Well, I didn't know she thought like that. That's why you have to prepare, have your support system understanding what's happening, how it's supposed to run smoothly, right? And so, people are always talking about that work-life separation, right? We don't have a work-life separation. If we do, but we don't. There's not like a clear-cut separation. Like we went to I went to the ocean. I did go to the ocean, but this is something different. Where there's an ocean where one side is green and one side is blue. I don't know where two oceans meet. Don't ask me which ones, but it's two different colors, right where they meet. What causes that, I don't know. So there's a clear separation of these two oceans, and that's something that is not necessarily in life. There might be a separation, but it blends together because you're a person. You go where you are. You go where you are. I'm at work, I'm here. But guess what? In my head, I still have another life. And when I get back home, I still have another life, right? So it's not that great separation. We're not robots. We're whole people with hearts and homes and hardships and good things happening, things like that. So challenge that lie. Like when people say, leave everything at the door. That's not happening. You got a parent, a senior citizen mom in the hospital, and you're going to leave it at the door? Who does that? That's not real life. Real life is what's in your head. Actually, that imaginary stuff in your head. That stuff we think about. I call it imaginary because I can't touch it, right? What's happening for real outside of the classroom? What's happening for real in the classroom? That is real life, right? So real life could be, I give you a good example, and this is an interruption. Life interrupted me while I was being observed. That's when it's always interrupting me too. I got a great day. Then all of a sudden, here comes the principal with a notepad, and then what? So I tell this story because it's like you couldn't make it up. Your imagination couldn't make it up. I get in my classroom. I changed from the kids had art, and it was time for me to come in and take my kids. As soon as I walk in, a little child, I don't remember who, that's had a bump on their head because they fell. The specialist had to leave. She left, and I was there with the child. So I have to, mind you, my principal walking in at the same time as me because this is time for my math. And I had to write a note for this child to go to the nurse, get up to the front of the class. The internet was gone. So I had to pull out my manual, teachers that hard copy manual, and go through that and make it work, write on the board and all that stuff because I wasn't doing it like that. We had internet and I was projecting what I had onto the board, and then I could add to it, right? I didn't have to write the problems or questions or none of that stuff. And then a few minutes later, here comes a child with the leg to a desk. The desk is about to fall because the leg broke off, and they're walking up to the front of the class while I'm teaching with the leg to the and mind you, this is real life. My principal is observant. So this is how come you have to be able to roll with the punches and no, I'm not gonna panic in the classroom, right? I'm not gonna trip if something goes awry. I'm not gonna do that. You have to have a plan. We have to have a plan for everything. I mean, we have to have a plan for everything. Even if we don't think, well, what happens if I don't have internet? What am I going to do? What happens if my mom called, she's in a panic or somebody's in a panic? What happens if whatever? What happens if I get sick at work? What happens? What am I going to do? What is the plan? Do I keep on working? Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can't. So just know you're not a robot, and that like the Bible says, to everything there's a season. So plan. I'm learning, like I am for real learning, like I said today, the guest canceled, and I didn't even trip. I didn't even care. Like what? Like, okay, you got that. I didn't say that, but at the same time, I still had to move. I had to come here with an episode that I did some research on, that I understand, that I know, that I have actually worked through. That I have actually implemented in my life, because I could come here and talk about anything. But it's easier for me to talk without, I glance up at my note right real quick, like it's bullet points. And then I still have to be able to talk about it. So it has to be something that is real life for me. And so I'm ready. I'm ready. I had so many episodes, so I could have just, mixed some together, or didn't, use one that I had before. It wouldn't matter, because I'll have a different perspective, because time has passed. So what does it look like, when life disrupts your flow? Like, really, what does it look like? So one day I was in the classroom. I don't know. I wish somebody out there, Zanaya, would comment, or LaShawn, what does it look like when you're at work and then something disrupts that? Because we have disruptions. Like, so one day I was in the classroom. I had a little experience outside, or something happened that I shouldn't have done, but I did it. And then I was feeling the effects of it. And so a student said, why are you sad? And I'm like, sad? You can see that I'm sad, for real? And he said, yeah. And this is a second grader. He saw that. He saw that my emotions were, different. It wasn't the same, my old bubbly self, or whatever I am in the classroom. It wasn't the same. He saw me. I was staring off in space. So, does it look like that? Do you have short patience with the students? Sit down right now, because you're all upset and you're trying to figure something out in your head, and the kids are all over the place. Sort of like when I had a disruption, we had to assess the students. We had to test the students. And I didn't really know the testing procedure. All kind of things. I didn't know how to get it right. Some things were happening, and I was getting like, okay, sit down, wait, all that kind of stuff. And wait, everybody sit until I get this together, so I understand it. It took me till the last day to understand how things actually worked. So then I was like, oh, I could put them all on the same thing, and who don't need it, it will advance them and have them to wait. That was exciting. I was so excited. They saw the difference when I got to where I understood it. So I wasn't short patient, but at the first, are you short patience with? Do you have short patience? Do you have guilt? Because when something comes through while you're teaching, do you have guilt? Because then you're not going to be on point. Like I said, the little kid asking me how come I was sad. Did I feel bad because I wasn't on point then? I wasn't ready to understand what the kids were saying. I wasn't able to have a conversation with the students, interact with the students for our lesson, because I was upset about something. What does it look like when life interrupts you? Do you have a disconnect from your students and your coworkers? People are walking past you, you're not saying anything because you're in thought. Does it look like that? Or do you keep on saying hi? Do you keep on? So understand, it's not failure when life disrupts your flow. It's not a failure, because you're what? You're a human. I say human because my family had a problem how I said human. So I have to pronounce that H really good. So it just sounds funny. I laugh when I say that word. But yeah, so it's not failure because you were emotionally distracted. It's not failure because you had a little bit of short patience. It's not a failure. You're a person. That's who we are. I mean, things happen in life that changes, interrupts our flow, and we're gonna react. But I say this is what I say today. As of today, we have to have plans for how we will react in different emotional situations. When we talk about that emotional intelligence, we have to have it planned out. Think things through. If this happens, I'll give you something good. Just say you think this is not a bad thing. This is opposite. So just say you played the lottery. If you played the lottery and you won, you checked your numbers while you're at work and you won. You think about how would I react? Picture that stuff in your head. How would I react if that happens? Will I stay calm? Will I trip? Will I walk out of work? What would I do? Plan that thing out. So if it happens, or when it happens, whatever, you already have it. So what happens if somebody calls me with bad news? Somebody got in an accident or something like that. How am I going to react? What is that going to look like? What are my emotions going to do? What are my emotions going to do? So that is, yeah, your emotions do play a role. That's why I learned you have to plan stuff out, because when you receive a call, oh, see, the night said she had to cry, right? So you do have to take a moment. Sometimes we have to take a moment, and your students understand, and that's so true because they feel us, they love us, and they don't want us upset. And then crying, when somebody's crying, everybody around feels that emotion, right? So I say as of today, because you already know, as of today, this is what I'm learning because I study a lot and I'm learning about that, changing my life, because how could we keep on doing the same thing over and over again? How come we can't change, or we think we can't change? How come we are not changing? But it's because it has something to do with how we think, because what we think is who we are. That affects our personality. What we think and what we do is our personality, right? And so I'm learning to practice and take myself out of something, take that emotion out of a lot of things, because things happen, especially now I'm getting older. Things happen. When I'm getting older, that means my mom is getting older. That means my siblings are getting older. That means my children, my grandchildren, everybody's getting older. So things happen in life, and we have to be emotionally intelligent. When I say emotionally intelligent, we just have to have a plan. And so you can cry, you could get upset, we could do that because we're people. And so at the same time, we have to know how to act when certain things happen. Like I use the example of you hitting the lottery. Are you going? How are you going to do? You could say, well, it didn't want any that much money, but what if it is that much money? You know what I mean? What if it is? So we just need to be able to plan. I'm trying to get my mouse over here. Trying, and so what we have to be able to understand, life is not going to stop because of us. Not while we're teaching, not while we're anything. Luckily, educators have a different kind of job where people are caring. They understand because we take care of people's children. We have lives, and we just have that understanding at our workplace, where we could say, I gotta go. Like my mom, my dad, you had to put one of these other specialists into my class. We had that kind of luxury. We don't take advantage of it either, because there's a day will come when we need it. So we just have practical strategies. So I was giving my own examples of what we could do. At the same time, we could, to balance both worlds, invite God in, right? When we go to work, let's pray over where we are. Pray over our home, over our classroom. Ask God to come with us wherever we go, because he's supposed to be there anyway. He is. Actually, we just have to be aware of it. And so invite him to help us prioritize, and pace ourselves, because you just can't be flying all off. Because I know I got a history of flying all off. So I believe me when I say you just can't do that. That doesn't even work. It doesn't even work. So That's just something that I know. And then we got to plan, like I said, plan for flexibility, allow breathing room, you know, in our lives, in our classroom, in our lesson plans, when we know life is heavy right now. I know my mom was in the hospital. She came home yesterday. I know that. So I have that breathing. I don't know who's gonna call me, what they're gonna say, right? I don't know. So I have to have breathing room. Give me a space. This is what we're gonna do. Have some plans on your desk. Have some. You should already have. I used to have up until now. Had lesson plans for 5 days. Lesson plans. I had that, and I even have split plans. If these kids got to be split up, I even have that. You take these kids, these kids, these kids. This is their work. It's supposed to have that for like 3 days, but I have 5 days of work. You come in my classroom, you got 5 days work. Today you probably had 3 because I used them up. And then you just have to identify. This is something that you have to identify safe people who are in your life. Like you might get upset about something, and it might not be the place everybody you walk past you're talking to. You got to know who's safe and who's not. You know, I'm not saying somebody's not safe that will discuss something with somebody else. I'm not saying that's not a safe person. Safe person, you could talk to them and they could give you comfort, give you advice. They could help you. They could just be there listening to you. That's a safe person. You know, if you don't work in a school, can you cover me? If I because I'm off. If I have to take off, can you cover my class? I don't know. Sometimes you have to go to battle. You have to know who's safe. You call across the hall, call down the hallway to the security or whoever. You have to be. If your principal is safe enough, you to explain the situation. I went to my principal. I had to explain it. Look, my mom went to hospital yesterday while we were here. I had to call somebody because we couldn't see her on the camera, right? And then today, this is what's happening, and I gotta go. Like you gotta be enough. You don't have to tell all your business, but you have to be enough that you feel safe enough to tell her. And then I know we get emotional, but we have to set emotional boundaries. Like, don't let something that happened at 6 a.m. define our entire day. You know, we could get upset and we be in a bad mood all day, but you don't have to. You don't have to let something that happened, one thing that happened, I don't care whether it's big or small, it does not have to control your day. It does not have to define, oh, this is a bad day. No, something bad happened during the day. It doesn't. So create a mental transitions. Might be music, you know, it might be crafts, it might be something that you say to yourself, right? We say things, we have different affirmations that we say to ourselves. I am blessed, you know, I'm highly favored, whatever it is. You know, the Bible says don't be anxious for anything, but with prayer, let your request be made known to God with prayer and supplications, something like that. And the peace of God will guard your heart and your mind. So that can happen if we understand that we're not going to be so anxious about something. We're not going to be, you know, all nervous about, oh my God, I got anxiety because this happened, or I have anxiety, this might happen. You know, give it to God because He can handle it. We can't. We're not even equipped for that. That's why He tells us don't do it. You know, so God is in the overlap, and be aware of that. Even if your personal life affects your classroom life, your school life, your work life, that guy, if it overlaps, your doctor calls your school, calls you at work, or somebody like that, guess what? God's still there. He's in it all, like He is. So know that that's our saving grace, knowing that, you know, God is there. I don't know anything else that we can count on besides Him, and He'll help us to think better and change our perspective on a lot of stuff. So He's not just the God of your calling. You know, I'm a teacher. He's that. He's not. He's the God of your chaos too, your family, your healing, your personal storms. Guess what? He's there. You think He ain't gonna give you a way out of stuff, or a way to relax in stuff, how to have peace in the storm? I'm learning. It took me a long time. Sometimes I know it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I walk in, sometimes I don't. But I promise you, you're not gonna have to worry about me again because I got stuff to do. And you don't know how much time you got. You have no clue. So you might as well walk in God with it. You might have 10 years, you might have 20, you might have 10 days. You don't know. I just saw an article where four young women got in an accident. 3 of them died. 1 of them didn't. They were between 32 and 26 or something like that. So their life, they didn't know how long they were going to live. So we got to learn how to give stuff to God, period. I know we want to say, oh, but this is our life and you don't understand. Yeah, God does. God does. So we got to know how to relax in that. So think about this. You're not less anointed because you're tired. You're not less anointed because you have stress in your life. Everybody has stress. You're not less anointed. You're not less called. God didn't say, okay, because you got upset because this lady talked to you wrong, because the doctor gave you bad news, because whatever. Now you're not an educator. Now you're not going to be able to educate the kids. That's not how that works, because he anointed you for that. He called you for that. You might have a gift to speak to these children in a different way than anybody else. You think he's going to take that away because you're stressed out? No, that doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. So just think about that. I don't have to be upset. And you're not going to lose. I just say that. I wrote that in my notes, but you're not going to lose your gift because you feel heavy. Feel like something is too much. You think you're going to lose that gift? You're not. So no, he's there. The Bible says, fear not, for I am with you. He is. He is everywhere we go. I just had to say that because sometimes we forget. And sometimes we ask, we go around asking people to pray. I'm the first person to put somebody on the prayer list. I'm the first person to pray for somebody, right? But we still got to remember that God is the answer. We don't have to ask anybody for anything. I do, because it's better. 3 people are better than 1 person. When we're gathered together and on one accord, God is in the midst. I understand that. At the same time, who we're talking to is God. He'll give us direction. He'll give us clarity. He'll show us what to do and what not to do. And that's just facts. Whether people say that's not facts or not, but that's just facts. So I just want to say, I think if we come up with affirmations that we believe. So you can say stuff until you believe it. You can say, like, I'm called. I say this every single morning. I'm called and I am equipped to do what God has called me to do. I say this to myself every single day. Whether it's the podcast, whether it's teaching, whether it's making lip balm, I'm equipped to do that. God has called me, anointed me in that area. And I say that to myself every single morning when I get up, after I pray, after I read, every single morning. I speak to myself and I believe it. So if you might not believe things the first time you say it and you just get used to it, but you're rewiring your brain, you're rewiring your thoughts, you're changing your thoughts. That way, that'll be part of your personality. People see you coming, see how strong and tall you're standing up, because you already know that you're gifted and equipped, or you have some affirmation about yourself that you're claiming. So that's just that. And another thing, I got this and I don't remember writing it. That God knows, like, how we feel like we're dropping the ball. God, He's not gonna kill us because we didn't dot every I, cross every T. He's not grading you on your perfection. He's holding us with compassion. He's like, this is my child. Same way you would do your child if something happened to your child. You think that God is like, I got you. I knew you weren't going to do. I knew. No, because if He did, that's not the God I know. Yeah, He corrects us and He'll let us know. You keep it up if you want, right? But nah, when we're having a problem, He's there for us, and He knows. He ain't great. If He start grading me on every time I drop something, I would flunk the class long time ago. What I would have got what I deserved long time ago. So he's holding us with compassion. So this is action step that I have that I think we should work on. So write a 3-line prayer this week that covers both your personal and your professional life. Speak it aloud before your day begins. 3-line prayer. God cover me at work. God cover me at home. Protect my family. Whatever. 3 lines. Say it every day. 3 lines. Walk with me into this school building. Help me to let your spirit flow through me to teach these kids what they need to know. I don't care. 3 lines, not 10, not 10. Every single day. This week, this Wednesday. You know what I mean? Thursday to next Wednesday. See what happens. Speak it out loud every single day. That, man, watch things change. Watch things change. And it doesn't have to change in your outward, because your inward, what happens inside is what changes outside. You may not be able to see anything. Keep on saying it, knowing that he's there, because then you're going to believe it. You're going to know God is doing whatever you asked him to do. And you're going to walk in it. You're going to walk differently. I promise you. God, cover me as I walk into this classroom. God, flow through me as I walk into this classroom, educate these students. Every day I say that. Every day I say something like that. Man, watch how your atmosphere changes. Watch how it changes, because it's got to change, because it's changing you inside, because you're going to believe it. You're going to believe that he's going to do it. And then you're going to be different. People are going to notice the difference. Your students going to notice the difference, because that's what you're doing. You have these 3 things that you're declaring, that you're asking God for. I don't know what else to say, but I just want to say this is good. The last 2 weeks, people canceled on me. Was it last week? Yeah, last weekend, this weekend. Yeah. This is awesome. You think this would help me? Not only did it help me, it's because this is what I'm walking in right now. I'm telling you, when the guy said he canceled today, he said that today, like a little bit ago. And I'm like, okay. I was looking forward to it. That's what, because I really was. He's a bowler, and he's won awards. And I heard him speak to some kids, and it was fantastic. So I'm like, okay, got this. I don't know what happened, but hope everything's okay. But this is an episode, because this is right on time episode. And just know that we are people. God made us people. He knows who we are, what we supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? He understands who we are, and he has our back. And he's going to be there for us. He's there is already. And so just know he has us. Hey. And so I just want to say that. Remember that you're people. Things happen in life. Things happen. What are you going to do when something happens? What is it going to look like? Is it going to look like you're walking around all sad and depressed? Is what happened at 6:00 a.m. going to determine the rest of your day? Or is it going to be a moment in your day? You can still have the same problem throughout your day, but is it going to affect how you behave the rest of the day? The attitude that you have, is it going to affect your personality? Because what you think, is who you are. So we're going to have to start thinking differently, have plans for when something comes up, whether it's good or bad. How are we going to behave? So thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Zenaida. As I thank you, LaShawn. I appreciate you being here. And if you want to leave a comment, I appreciate that. I thank you for these comments. And also, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Share with another educator, because you don't have to be an educator for today's episode to help you. It just is helpful, because knowing that there's a way for us to work through stress, work through things that come up and interrupt our flow. A flow of our day. We have a flow going, and then here comes something. That's going to help, because we'll have a plan already. What will we do? So thank you again. I really appreciate you. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe to Educators with Oil podcast on your preferred platform and join Ronnette on this mission to empower teachers through the wisdom of the Bible. Because when biblical strategies meet the classroom, extraordinary teaching happens.
Educators, let's shine a light on our classrooms. See you on Educators with Oil podcast, where teaching and faith unite.